My wife stole $250, $0 from our joint account and convinced her brother to help her hide it. Then she suddenly filed for divorce, claiming I was an abusive spouse, all while secretly planning to sell our family home worth over $500,000 to cover her debts. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, trying to piece together the mess my life has become. It all started with small signs, little things that I brushed off at first. My wife, Emily, had always been a little bitchy, but lately she'd been downright cold and distant. She'd come home late more often, excuse herself with some vague work emergency or a girls' night, but I noticed her phone was glued to her hand more than usual. She'd delete messages, hide her screen when I walked into the room, and suddenly her enthusiasm for intimacy disappeared. Then one day, I decided to check our joint bank account out of curiosity. Nothing suspicious about that, right? But what I saw made my stomach drop. There was a withdrawal of $250, $0 gone just like that. I couldn't believe it. I stared at the screen thinking I must be reading it wrong. But no, it was real. I called Emily immediately, but she brushed me off, saying I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. She told me I was overreacting, that I was controlling. But I knew something wasn't right. It turned out I wasn't just paranoid. A few days later, I found out from her brother, Jason, that Emily had convinced him to help her hide the money. They'd transferred it into secret accounts, fake names, whatever it took. I was furious. How could she do this? We built a life together, or so I thought. She was always bitchy, always making snide comments about money, about how I didn't give her enough, but I never thought she'd go this far, stealing $500,000 from us. And that was just the tip of the iceberg. Because, while all this was happening, Emily was also sneaking around. I caught her in lies, little things at first, missed calls, strange texts, late nights that suddenly weren't so innocent. Then I found out she was cheating on me with her coworker, Mark. I saw the messages, the flirtatious tone, the "can't wait to see you again" texts. It hit me like a punch to the gut. My wife, my partner, was screwing someone else behind my back while she was secretly planning her escape route. The worst part was realizing she had no intention of stopping. She was planning to sell our family home, our biggest asset worth over $500,000, to cover her debts and probably to start fresh with Mark. She was a bitch in every sense of the word. The woman I married was a liar, a thief, and a cheat. I felt betrayed on every level, by her, by her brother, by the illusion of the life we'd built. I didn't know what to do at first. I felt numb, then angry, then heartbroken. I had trusted her with everything, my money, my heart, my future. And she'd taken it all and planned to walk away with it. I started to think about revenge, about how I could make her pay for this. But first, I had to confront her. I needed answers, and I needed her to face the consequences of what she'd done. That's when I decided I wouldn't let her get away with it. Not without a fight. Not without making her see that I wasn't some naive fool who'd let her cheat and steal and lie his way out of everything. This was going to be a game changer. I just didn't know how deep the rabbit hole went yet. I remember the night I decided to confront Emily like it was yesterday. I had been gathering clues for weeks, but that night everything came crashing down. I had finally found the proof I needed: hidden bank statements, encrypted emails, and her secret texts with Mark. I sat her down after dinner, my heart pounding in my chest, knowing I couldn't avoid it any longer. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk she always had when she thought she was in control. "What's going on, Jeff? You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, trying to sound casual, but I saw the flicker of nervousness in her eyes. I wasn't buying it. I slammed the papers on the table and told her I knew about the money, about her lying, about her affair. Her face twisted into a mask of anger and defiance. "You don't understand, Jeff," she snapped, crossing her arms. "You're just jealous, you're paranoid, none of this is your business." She tried to brush it off, to act like everything was fine, but I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I told her I wanted the truth, all of it, and she finally cracked. She started lying, spinning stories about how she needed the money to cover debts, how Mark was just a friend, how she was miserable and wanted something more. But I knew better. I knew she'd been planning this for months. She had lied about her feelings, about her intentions. She'd been cheating on me, stealing from us, and now she was trying to gaslight me into thinking I was the crazy one. I felt a mixture of rage and despair. How could she do this? How could she betray everything we had? I asked her point blank, "Are you planning to leave me? Are you planning to sell the house?" She looked at me with that bitchy smirk again and said, "Maybe I deserve better. I've been miserable with you for years. You never listened, Jeff. Maybe it's time I did something for myself." Her words cut deep. I felt my blood boil. In that moment, I realized I had to act fast. I couldn't let her take everything, our home, our future, everything we built. I told her she was a liar, a thief, and a cheat. I told her I'd call the police if she tried to sell the house or hide any more money. I told her I wasn't going to let her get away with this. The confrontation didn't end that night, but it marked the start of a new chapter. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. I felt betrayed on every level, emotionally, financially, and morally. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, had turned into a complete stranger. I was hurt, furious, and feeling more lost than ever. But I also knew I had to fight for what was rightfully mine. In the days that followed, I started planning my next moves. I reached out to a lawyer, looked into freezing the house's sale, and prepared myself for a long fight. I knew Emily was scheming to get her way, but I wasn't going down without a fight. I had to protect what was mine, and I had to make her pay for the betrayal she'd committed. But deep down, I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I realized that I'd been blind for too long, ignoring the warning signs. I'd let her manipulate me, and now I was paying the price. Still, I was determined to see this through. Whatever it took, I was going to get justice. Over the next few days, I threw myself into gathering evidence and making arrangements. I contacted a lawyer who specialized in financial crimes and divorce cases. The more I dug, the angrier I got. Emily had been sneaking around behind my back for months. I found emails from her brother, Jason, discussing how to hide the money, moving it into offshore accounts, and even setting up fake companies to divert the funds. It was like a full-blown conspiracy, and I felt like I was only just scratching the surface. What made it worse was how Emily kept up her act. She tried to make me think I was overreacting, that I was paranoid or jealous. She accused me of snooping, call me insecure, and tell me I was crazy for not trusting her. But I had receipts now, proof that she'd lied to me about everything. I had her texts with Mark, her secret emails with Jason, and the bank statements showing the money disappearing. The day I confronted her again, I was ready. I told her she was trying to get rid of the house to cover her debts, her secret debts that she never told me about. I asked her directly if she was planning to sell everything, and she finally lost her cool. "You don't own me, Jeff," she spat. "I can do whatever I want. I don't care about this house or your stupid money. I just want out of this nightmare with Mark and a fresh start." Her words hit me like a punch, but I knew better. I knew she was lying, trying to manipulate the situation. I decided I needed to see her plans firsthand. I hired a private investigator to watch her and Jason. Turns out they were meeting frequently, discussing how to transfer assets and even how to fake a divorce too. Hide everything. Emily was planning to leave town with Mark, taking the money, the house, everything. I couldn't believe how deep her deception went. She'd been planning her escape for months, maybe even longer. That's when I made the decision. I couldn't just sit back and let her walk away with everything. I had to take control of the situation. I filed for an emergency order to freeze the sale of the house and to secure the bank accounts. I also started preparing for a nasty legal battle. This wasn't just about money anymore, it was about justice. I wanted her to pay for everything she'd done, her lies, her theft, her betrayal. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt betrayed, angry, and deeply hurt. I kept replaying every moment, how she used to be sweet, how I trusted her, how she turned into this manipulative, selfish person. I wondered how I missed the signs for so long, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew I had to fight for myself now, to protect what was left of my dignity and my future. I was angry at her, but I was also angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. I had loved her and I'd given her everything, my time, my money, my trust, and she had taken it all and thrown it away. I couldn't believe I was in this position, but I was determined to come out of it stronger. I knew this was only the beginning, and I was ready for whatever came next. The legal process moved faster than I expected once I had all my ducks in a row. My lawyer was relentless, filing motions to freeze her assets, prevent her from selling the house, and subpoena her financial records. I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief because I was finally taking control, and dread because I knew Emily wouldn't go down without a fight. Meanwhile, Emily's attitude started to shift. The bitchy smirk she usually wore was replaced with a cold, calculating look. She started throwing around accusations, claiming I was abusive, that I was controlling and manipulative. It was her way of trying to turn the tables, but I knew better. I'd seen her true face now, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. One night, she confronted me in the living room. Her voice was low but sharp. "You're so paranoid, Jeff. You think I'm cheating, stealing, whatever. I don't know what you want from me. Maybe I'm just tired of pretending everything's okay." Her words were dripping with false innocence, but I didn't buy it. I told her I knew about her plans to sell the house and run off with Mark, and that I had proof. Her face flickered with panic for a second, then she masked it with that bitchy smirk again. That moment was a turning point. I realized this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about her trying to destroy me emotionally, to gaslight me into thinking I was the crazy one. It made me even angrier. How dare she accuse me of being the bad guy when she was the one screwing around, stealing from us, and planning to leave? I felt like I was fighting a losing battle, but I knew I couldn't give up. The police got involved after I presented my evidence. They started an investigation into her financial dealings and her attempts to hide the money. I also found out that Jason was helping her launder the cash, which only made things worse. It was like a web of lies, betrayal, and greed. I felt like I was drowning in it. I kept asking myself how someone I loved could turn into such a manipulative, selfish person. The emotional toll was brutal. I'd wake up every day feeling betrayed, angry, and exhausted. I'd stare at the ceiling, wondering if I'd ever trust anyone again. I'd replay everything, second-guessing every moment, every conversation. But amid all that chaos, I also started to see a way out. I realized I had to focus on myself, on rebuilding my life, no matter how hard it was. I told myself I'd fight for my rights, for my home, for my dignity. Emily had already taken so much: my trust, my savings, my peace of mind. But I wasn't going to let her take everything. The house, the money, my future. She wasn't going to get away with it. I was determined to see this through, no matter how messy or painful it got. And honestly, I started to feel a strange sense of clarity. I knew this was going to be a long, ugly battle, but I also knew I'd come out stronger on the other side. I had to. Because if I didn't, Emily would win, and I refused to let her do that. I'd been betrayed enough. Now it was time to fight back. The months that followed were a whirlwind of legal battles, sleepless nights, and emotional exhaustion. Every day felt like a new obstacle, but I was determined to hold my ground. The court hearings were brutal. Emily showed up with her bitchy smirk, trying to manipulate the judge, spinning lies about how I was abusive, controlling, and mean. She insisted I was the problem, that she needed to leave to find happiness. It was all a big lie, but I had my evidence, and I made sure it was presented clearly. My lawyer worked tirelessly to expose her schemes. We brought in forensic accountants to trace the stolen $250, $0, which Emily and Jason had tried to hide offshore. That money was supposed to be ours, and I refused to let her walk away with it. I also filed for full custody of the house, arguing that her plans to sell it and run off with Mark were reckless and damaging. The judge saw through her lies, and I felt a flicker of hope. Meanwhile, Emily's behavior grew more desperate. She started threatening me, saying I'd never see my money or the house again. She called me abusive, manipulative, even threatening to ruin my reputation. But I knew her tricks now. I'd learned how she played the victim, how she twisted everything around to make herself look innocent. I stayed calm, kept my evidence ready, and refused to take the bait. One day, she crossed a line. She tried to stage a confrontation in front of the neighbors, pretending I was hitting her, claiming I was abusive. I was stunned. I never laid a finger on her, and I knew she was trying to set me up. The neighbors called the police, who quickly saw through her lies. It was a humiliating moment for her, but I felt a strange sense of vindication. She was losing control, and I was finally gaining the upper hand. The legal process was draining, but I also started to feel a sense of relief. I was reclaiming what was mine: my money, my home, my dignity. I began planning my next steps, knowing that the final victory was still ahead. I wanted her to face the consequences of her actions, to understand that betrayal doesn't pay. I also started to focus on healing myself, seeking therapy to deal with the emotional scars she left behind. Deep down, I knew I'd never fully forgive her, but I also knew I had to move forward. I couldn't let her define me anymore. This experience had been a brutal lesson in trust and betrayal, but it also made me stronger. I learned that even in the darkest moments, there's a way out if you're willing to fight for it. I was ready to see this through to the end, whatever it took, because I deserved that much. And one way or another, I was going to come out of this victorious. The final court hearing was the culmination of everything. After months of fighting, lying, and betrayal, I finally saw her true colors exposed for everyone to see. Emily had tried every trick in the book: more false accusations, manipulative stories, even attempting to turn some of our mutual friends against me. But I had the evidence. The bank records, the emails, her brother's involvement, all laid bare. The judge listened carefully, and I could see the wheels turning. When the judge finally ruled, it was a relief, but not without a bitter taste. The house was awarded to me, and Emily was ordered to pay back the stolen money plus damages. Her plans to sell off our home and run off with Mark were halted. She was also ordered to stay away from me, and the restraining order was put in place. I felt a strange sense of closure, like I had finally taken back control of my life from someone who tried to destroy it. Looking back, I realize how much I was blinded by love and trust. Emily's betrayal was a punch to the gut, but it also taught me a harsh lesson: never ignore the signs, never assume someone is who they pretend to be. I had to face the reality that I was married to a manipulative, selfish woman who only cared about herself. That realization was painful, but it was also freeing. I've spent the last few weeks rebuilding my life. I moved into a new place, started therapy, and focused on healing. The pain of betrayal doesn't go away overnight, but I've learned to accept it as part of my journey. I've also become more cautious, more aware of the red flags, and more determined to protect myself emotionally and financially. As for Emily, I hope she gets whatever she deserves. She's lost her marriage, her reputation, and probably a lot of her own sense of morality. I don't hate her anymore. I just feel sorry for her. Because at the end of the day, she chose greed and deception over honesty and love. She threw away her marriage for fleeting pleasures, and now she's paying the price. This experience has changed me. I'm more cautious, more resilient, and more aware of what real trust looks like. I don't regret fighting for what was mine. I don't regret exposing her lies. And I definitely don't regret walking away from someone who was never truly the person I thought she was. If I could give one piece of advice, it's this: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the warning signs, no matter how much you want things to be perfect. And never let anyone steal your peace, your money, or your dignity. Because in the end, the only person who truly cares about your well-being is yourself. And I've learned that the hard way. I'm finally free from her grip. That's all that matters. Now,